This is episode 12 of the Shame Proof Your Life podcast, the one where I talk about sleep shame. I'm your host and shame coach, Danita Bremer. In this podcast, I tell stories from my life to fulfill a prompting I've had for far too long. I help you tell your story in a way you see you aren't alone and there's nothing wrong with you. I want you to stop believing the lie you aren't enough so you can live a life of freedom and fulfillment the way God intended. All right, today we're going to talk about sleep shame. So I know last week the episode was pretty heavy, and I just want to change it up a little bit here and talk about a topic that's a little lighter, but still related to shame. And my guess is that more of you all will be able to relate to this than we assume. I have this general sense or these like messages in my mind that sleep is related to laziness. So, whenever the word lazy comes up, I like to refer to the definition, which is unwilling to work or use energy. So, by that definition, I am for sure not lazy. I work a lot and I work hard, and I'm not scared of like physical labor, but I also like to sleep a lot. I'm just a person that needs a little bit more sleep. I have studied myself extensively in this area. And what I mean by that is my oldest is now 17. So since I was pregnant with her, I have been trying to get myself to naturally wake up earlier or to just be able to get out of bed earlier. And I have tried a lot of things. I thought that having kids would solve the problem, but it didn't. And I mean, definitely, I wake up way earlier than I used to. Like in college, when my husband and I were living together, I could literally sleep until 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Like I would probably stay up until 11 or midnight, maybe a little later than that. And then I would sleep until the afternoon. And he would get so upset because he wanted to like do things, right? Not just like sleep all the time. But I come by it honestly. My mom was a major night owl, and her dad was also a major night owl. So my grandfather worked at I think it was an airplane production place, and he worked the shift that is like mid-afternoon till around midnight. And then he would stay up, go to the bars until the bars closed around 2 a.m. So I don't know how that affected my mom, but she was also a night owl like that. I have a memory of myself 3 or 4 years old sitting on my mom's lap at the kitchen table. And I asked her, "What time is it?" And she said, I don't remember the exact time she said, but she said something like 3:47 a.m. So when I say night owl, I mean like night owl. And I've also described my mom in previous episodes of the podcast. She probably was clinically depressed, at least at some points of my childhood growing up. But also, she just was kind of a lower energy person. She really liked to read and just kind of lounge and hang out. So, I mean, she liked other things. She liked to fish and she liked to garden. But when we were home, she was often just laying in bed reading. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I also have memories of like my dad, like how he would wake us up was shake us really hard or whistle really loud. And then if we weren't up in about 30 seconds, he would get super upset at us. My mom, on the other hand, she would like be super gentle. Wake up. It's time to get ready for school. She would hand us our clothes and let us get dressed under the covers. She would bring us bowls of cereal to eat in bed, right? Because she was so sympathetic to the whole waking up struggle. The other memory I have that I think really speaks to this idea that like somehow sleeping too much or too late is bad is the summer I was 12 years old. I spent almost the entire summer at my grandparents' house, and I would, I would sleep pretty late. Now, when I say pretty late, I think it was like 9 a.m. It's not like I was sleeping till 1 p.m. or something. But one time my grandfather put some marbles in the freezer to chill them, and then he dumped the marbles on me to wake me up. Oh my gosh. I was so mad. Like, I think that is the meanest thing someone can do. Now we have these like ice bucket challenges. Y'all are crazy for doing that stuff if that's what you do. Cause that is not my idea of fun or growth or anything like that. Um, Now, I said I come by this honestly, and have studied myself extensively in relation to sleep because I have this idea that to be a morning person is better than to be a night person. And to sleep too much is not as good as people who need less sleep. I do think that this is very related to the idea that to be productive is better than to not be productive. Now, all of that, those are just like society's messages, society's thoughts, right? Now, if we were to rewind 100 years or whatever, sure, it might actually really affect things if you sleep too much because there's certain work that has to be done if you want to eat or have clothes or whatever, right? And they didn't have electricity that, could give them light to keep working past dark. So you had to like get your work done during the day. And not to mention like large families in small spaces. I don't even know how it would be really possible to sleep that long. But nowadays, we have modern conveniences that help us sleep more and longer. And being able to sleep and get good sleep is actually a problem that so many people want to solve. So, in so many ways, I consider myself very blessed because I can sleep and sleep straight through. And like I said, my problem is not enough sleep or not quality sleep. It is too much sleep. And how do I wrangle it in? Right. Now, I think that this whole idea of like the morality of productivity and the morality of sleep, it really lends itself to thinking that sleeping too much or too long is somehow shameful, right? And also, like, different people need different amounts of sleep. So it seems like it is something that is about you, right? Like part of your identity. And so that also lends itself to having shame around sleep. And now I would just want to tell you about an experience I had the other day. Like I said, I'm always examining myself in relation to sleep. I have done tons of challenges in the past, like if I get up by this time, then I can put $1 in the jar. And then after so many months, then I can spend it on whatever I want. Like I've tried to, give myself rewards. I've tried to give myself punishments. I've tried going to bed earlier. I've tried going to bed later. I've tried things with my diet for sleep, like all kinds of things to try to get myself to wake up earlier more consistently. And last year, I was doing some work around sleep just in my own self coaching. And I had a conversation with my husband about it. And you guys, my husband loves me. He's a great guy. This was not meant to be intentionally like hurtful. But I said something to him about what I was trying to wake up earlier and all that. And he said, "Well, you just don't want it bad enough." And I was sort of like, oh, like taken aback, like offended by that, right? Like as if I wanted it bad enough that that would just magically make me be able to wake up earlier and get out of bed earlier. I don't think so. And but it like the fact that I reacted so strongly to his statement, and he said it very like flippantly, very matter of fact. And I was just like, how could you say that? Right. Like I was pretty upset about it, not outwardly toward him, but it kind of like boiled my blood a little bit. And so then I noticed, like, oh, wait, why is this upsetting you so much? Maybe it like struck something within me. So I started to just think about it like, wait, could it be true that I don't really want to wake up earlier? And if I did, I would be different. I don't know, maybe. So I thought about that in terms of like commitment and all of that. And I kind of realized that maybe it was true. Maybe like, what would I be doing instead? If I wake up earlier, I have this sort of like, oh, successful people wake up early and they exercise and they journal and they read their scriptures and like they're better somehow, right? And all of that started coming to the surface. And I realized that I had a lot of thoughts about people who sleep in, and so I just decided, I was like, okay, I'm done. I can wake up at whatever time I want. And you guys, I did it for almost a whole year. I would set my alarm at either 6 or 6:30, and when the alarm went off, I would get up. So now I know it's not that I can't do it. I can do it. It's just that I have to have a compelling reason. And sometimes I don't have a compelling reason. Sometimes allowing myself to sleep a little more feels like self care and self love. And the other thing that I've been realizing is that I'm just I don't have high energy first thing in the morning. Like it takes me about a full 2 hours to feel totally awake, and only if I take a shower and eat. So my energy level first thing in the morning, no matter what time I wake up, really isn't super high. Now, so that I used to think would mean, oh, so I'm not a early bird, so I must be a night owl, right? Well, that's not true either, because my energy late at night is also pretty low. I'm a kind of person who has my peak energy during the middle of the day. Now, I have noticed, like I said, like my energy tracks with the sun. So maybe that's just something good to know for you to sort of pay attention to that. And if you sleep in, or if you stay up really late, or if you want to go to bed early and wake up early, like none of that means anything about you as a person. It just means that that's how your body functions. Um, okay, let me just double check my notes here, see if I missed anything. I think I got everything. Yeah. So, really pay attention to when you have energy. And then what do you want to make it mean about you? Because you could make it mean like, oh, I'm lazy. I'm not as good as somebody else. I won't be successful. That's possible. But I know night owls or people who aren't early risers who are also successful. So, it's not necessarily true. And I think the main takeaway here is to examine your relationship with sleep and like, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings about how much you sleep and when you sleep? Do you make it into kind of a moral thing, right? Do you make it mean like someone is better if they wake up earlier? And side note, you guys, our whole society is meant for earlier risers. Like a typical workday is like 8 or 9 to 5. If our society was meant for like night owls, then all the businesses would be open like 11 or noon until 1 or 2 in the morning, right? So you get to decide on purpose what you make all of that mean. And part of this may just be giving yourself permission to say, oh, that's not how I am. That's not easy for me. That's not like a default thing for me, right? Like you could coach yourself or force yourself in some way to be different, right? Like for those of us who are not early morning people, but then we have an early morning flight, that's a compelling reason to wake up, right? And we just tell ourselves, I'll sleep on the flight or I'll take a nap later or whatever. So we have evidence we can wake up, we can get up when we need to. It's just, it might be sort of fighting our own body's natural rhythms and tendencies. And whatever our body wants to do doesn't mean that we have to think or have a mindset that is trying to force it to do something else. Right. And I really love to think about this idea that I'm 40 years old. I've spent my life thinking about myself in terms of I'm not as good as people who can wake up easily or earlier. I've spent 40 years practicing those thoughts and that identity. Even if I wanted to change it, which I can, it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's not going to just be like, oh, okay, well, now it's done. So there's some practice that goes along with it, which is for me, that feels very like graceful, right? Like, oh, of course, I still think these thoughts about myself. They don't just magically disappear. We have to really practice thinking other thoughts to strengthen other beliefs. Okay, that's enough for now. And so are you. Until next time, go be you, sleep or no sleep, and follow the spirit.